It's Lisa from Been There Got Out, and today we are going live with Maarit from Blended Family Frappe. And we actually connected, I don't know, a few months ago because one of our clients told us about her, and they have this really, let me just see if she's here. They have this really interesting checklist regarding parenting plans and high conflict divorce. Hi.
Sorry, I don't know why. I'm like, why won't it let me in? Here I am.
Good, good. So good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're doing this because I feel like there's a whole community of bonus parents and step families and blended families that are part of our shared community. And we haven't really talked that much about what it's like when you're dealing with a new partner who comes with a lot of baggage.
Right.
And sometimes it's us.
Yeah, sometimes speaking for the step parents, uh sometimes our partners don't even know that it's high conflict. And then it takes this outsider, this new person to come in and say, this is not right. Like this is not are you sure that this is how often you're supposed to have your kids? Well, what do your papers say? And you just kind of get this feeling that things aren't quite right. A lot of times it's the step parent out there getting these resources and bringing them back to their partner because the step parent is so impacted. And
That is, yes, that's exactly what happens with us. Like we
right.
often will have usually the stepmother
Mm-hmm.
call us and say, I am so upset. Like I feel like I really need to help my partner and he's struggling with his ex and I don't know what to do. And the kids are struggling and I'm going crazy because I just feel so helpless.
Yeah, you guys are the frogs in the boiling water. And then we
The frog in the pot.
this shit is hot. And you're like, it's warm. I mean, it's a little warm. It's fine. It's nothing we can't handle. My husband, Dan, was like, oh no, we're friends about his ex when we got together. He's like, oh no, we're friends. Sometimes she's a little bit, maybe she's sometimes a little selfish with her time with our kid, but like ultimately we're friends and we really do want the best for each other. And it's like, oh, well, and then as a step parent, when do you speak up about that? When are you not this new person who should keep their mouth shut? So it's really hard to figure out how to address this with their partners.
Yeah. Well, before we even start, tell us a little bit about Blended Family Frappe. And am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Like a Starbucks drink. I'm Maarit at Blended Family Frappe. I started this platform as a result of many years of high conflict step parenting and living in a high conflict step family and realizing there just were not resources that existed. It's getting better now. But when I met my husband, Dan, we were together 13 years now. So when we got together, there was nothing. There was work about high conflict just starting to get more known. And there was some very vanilla, oh, don't take it personally kind of stuff for step parents. But there really wasn't anything that talked about the real issues that I was facing, which led me to feel like, well, I must just be something very, very wrong. This is a Maarit problem and not a step parenting problem. Turns out I was
No.
wrong. That what I was going through is super universal. So I just started, for people in high conflict, I should say. And so I just started this platform. My husband, Dan, helps me. We have a podcast that we do together where we talk about both sides of the issues and how we worked it out as a team or not, because we were definitely at odds sometimes and a lot of the time. And now, our kids are college age and the conflict is really behind us. And it's just really looking back at those years, I'm like, I don't know how we survived that, but I know that I want to help other people who are going through. So we just kind of share our lived experiences and wisdom, hopefully, and hot tips.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're a male-female team and we are too.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times it's just women who are talking and it shouldn't be just women. There's a whole bunch of men out there who are not talking as much about high conflict females that they're dealing with, the mothers of the children who are making things very hard.
Absolutely.
So,
and and then on the flip side, so much help out there for step parents is actually for stepmoms, and more so written for straight stepmoms. Everything is about your husband that, and this is 2022. Like there, and I'm convinced. Well, first of all, obviously, same-sex couples are going through this too, but then secondly, I am convinced that stepdads face all of these challenges too, but there's just no platform for them. And so that is one of the reasons that I have a platform that is not just for stepmoms. I do most of my audience, it is like 90% stepmoms, but like those stepdads need help too. They are out there and they're struggling and they need help too, and they're going through it too. So yeah, we all need help. We all need help blending a family. And it's not just the step parents, it takes two. Both partners need to be in it together to get through it. And then a big part of that is if the ex is a nightmare, we need to figure out how to set boundaries around that nightmare.
Yes, and we're definitely going to talk about that. Okay, so something that really stood out when you and I first met was that there's this myth that friendly co-parenting is the default, that most people are getting along just fine, and for some reason it must be just us that has this problem with this other person. So tell us the truth. Like, what have you seen in your own experience and other people that you know?
We were just talking about this on my feed the other day because I was asking step parents, what resources have you found for your partners that have really helped your partners? And someone said co-parenting counseling. And I was like, that's interesting, because in my experience, parenting counseling was worthless because, you know, Dan went to it with this and got the message that you always get about compromise more. It's for the kids. Don't argue. Like, don't be difficult. Work harder to meet in the middle or whatever. And he just got like in his head, like he was the difficult one. And he's like, well, if it's hard, I must not be doing enough. And
that's an extension of an abusive relationship.
Totally. And they don't even talk about that. And nothing about co-parenting courses talks about if you're co-parenting with someone who's high conflict, if they're a narcissist, if they're just plain difficult. They always act as if the default is, oh, well, you divorced a normal, reasonable person and you guys just don't get along, but here's how you'll get along. And it's like, it's such bullshit. Like, that is just not the reality for so many couples. I'm not saying that normal people don't like exist and break up. Like, my ex is not particularly high conflict. I'm not saying we had a super easy time of it, but he's not high conflict, and we co-parented just fine, and no one needed to poison their kid or put them in the middle or make them spy and lie between houses. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Okay, so you started talking about boundaries. And I know another thing I took note of when we first talked is that you said something like you need to have the boundaries to have the peace. And then you and I had a very interesting conversation also that I wanted to try to replicate here about codependency and exes and what it's like when you start a relationship with somebody who still doesn't realize how much he may be jumping at every request that his ex makes. You want to start talking about that?
Yeah, well, when someone's high conflict, you know, our instinct as normal people is like, oh, well, this person is upset. How can I to calm them down? Oh, it's something I did. Well, let me adjust my behavior. And I like to describe this with a visual, which is like normal person, high conflict person. So the normal person is like, oh, well, let me meet you halfway. But the high conflict person stays here. And then you're like, oh, well, let me give a little bit more to calm you down. And they're still here. And then they're like, well, let me do everything you asked then. And they're like, oh, now you need to, like, they went off. They're like over here now. Like, oh, no.
Moving goalposts.
Yeah. And so we keep trying and trying and trying to compromise, trying to please this person who literally cannot be pleased. You cannot appease them because their goal is chaos, and they control you through that chaos and through that conflict. So they don't want to calm down. You know, their goal is not your goal. Your goal is to take your kids out of the middle, calm down that conflict, co-parent like you're supposed to co-parent. That's not their goal. Their goal is keep you guessing, keep you angry. They control you through that anger, and they're always in charge. And that way they have all the power.
Right. And they keep you engaged
Totally.
because people don't realize it's if negative or positive, they still really, really want you in their lives.
Need the attention. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention. They just need, they're a attention black hole. They just gimme, gimme, gimme. And they need to feel like they're in charge. So if they're picking you off, then they win.
Yeah. Yeah. And my partner is also on here. He's monitoring the feed and he said, ouch, Lisa, that one was about me when I said they still jump. So I know when he and I first got together, you know, when we'd be out and his ex knew that we were, I mean, they had been separated for quite a while. We were both separated and we'd be out clearly on a date at like 10:30 at night. He'd get a text like, you need to get the medication for one of our children, like right now, bring it over. And Chris would just be ready to go. And I'm like, what? Wait a second. Wait a second. Like, do you notice how every single time, and she's using the kids, she's using the kids to get at you. And I actually don't know if you're emotionally available for a new relationship because you're so under that thumb. And he was like, wow.
Yeah, totally. And but then as the new partner coming in, for us to even recognize that, it takes so much time to realize that that's a pattern, first of all, and secondly, that that's an unhealthy pattern. You know, like unless you have a background where you know what abuse looks like, you know what codependency looks like, you know what high conflict looks like, you don't recognize that. It took me years. It took until after I started the platform to realize that Dan's marriage had been abusive. And like, dude, you're an abuse. Like, whoa, that makes everything so clear. But we just hadn't associated that terminology with our experience, you know? Like, why would I? I just wouldn't have put that together because if you haven't seen it, you don't know what it looks like.
Right. And especially for men in general, because I think a lot of men don't like to think of themselves as like an abuse victim.
Totally. Well, and we don't like to think of women as abusers, as evidenced by the court system being super, super judgmental.
Yeah. Yeah. Maarit, I don't know if it's me or if it's your connection, but you're very, very choppy. Is it just me or is anyone else finding it like a little bit choppy on her end with the camera and the volume? Just write in. Or Chris, just tell me if, let's see, I don't see anyone saying anything. So I'm guessing maybe it's just my computer. I mean, my computer, my phone.
What do I know? I'm on my phone and hopefully it's.
No, stay on your phone. Stay on your phone. Okay, let's see.
Oh,
nope, I don't see. All right, yeah, you're choppy. You're choppy, definitely. Okay, maybe move to another location a little bit if you can.
Let's try. I'm trying to think another it's like has decent light. Oh, we're just gonna hold. We might just have to walk around. Here, you guys take a look with me.
Yeah, I'm seeing you're bouncing in and out and choppy. And what you're saying is so important. I'm like, I want to make sure we preserve this and that we can all hear you as well as possible.
Let me know, is this any better? And like, I'm gonna swipe up on my phone and check my settings and just make sure I'm on Wi-Fi and not data. So hopefully that doesn't cut you off. Hang on, you guys, 1 second.
Okay, if she gets cut off, everyone, then we're gonna just get her back on. I see she's spinning, so we'll see. But anyway, Chris, I see your comments, and I'm sorry that I am, of course, getting really personal with our relationship as well. But we have to, and that's part of why we reached out to Blended Family Frappe and Maarit, because this is our situation. Even though Chris and I are not married, we both started this relationship. We each have 2 kids, and we've been together for more than 7 years. We lost her. Oh, no. All right, let's see if she joins again. I'm glad I see I see more than one man in here, but at least one man that says that we are on point and that men can relate as well. But like I was saying, so Chris and I are not married, but we've been together for more than 7 years, and we still have had to navigate what it's like with having 2 families and dealing with each other's kids. All right, let me see. I think she's back. Let's see if we can get her back on here. All right. That work? Yes.
Back. Am I not choppy?
Yes, so far, so good. Yeah, better.
All right. Well, hopefully this is good. I'm holding it in my hand, so hopefully my hand doesn't get shaky. We'll just cross fingers. Okay.
Yeah, it's better. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better. All right, so we were talking about that whole thing with, you were saying that a lot of people don't even realize that they were in an abusive
Yeah.
relationship until after. I didn't either. I didn't know what that was. But
Same.
the codependency and the dynamic of the relationship where the person in control is still controlling you even when you're out, and
Right.
often using the kids to do so.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got a message the other day ago from a guy who started dating a girl, and he's like, she, the ex will text her all of the time, and say stuff like, well, I need this or I need that. And she won't not answer the phone or call all the
Yep.
time or whatever, because she's like, well, it might be an emergency with the kids. It's like,
That is
it's
so
not
common.
always an emergency. You just have to trust that if it's a real emergency, or like alternatively, then you set the boundary of, okay, then you can email me. And if it is an emergency, then you can call, but I'm not answering your calls. Otherwise, like, we have to find those boundaries, because otherwise we cannot live our own lives. I mean, we just straight up can't live our own lives.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's like such a really common thing with many of our clients, where the ones in a new relationship are still so terrorized. And that's the word that we use. It's like a terrorist campaign.
Totally.
And they're always still in that hyper vigilant state, because it's like, if it's an emergency and if something, it's always like something with the kids, something with the kids.
Totally.
So they can't ever move on with their lives. And certainly it's very hard to have a new relationship. And I know for our people, and I see some of them are here, and I see one person just said, why did they think everything is an emergency? They don't. It's just that they put that label on it.
That's gonna kick
still,
right.
right. Okay. Uh-oh. Maarit, you're pixelating. All right, you stop. No, you're okay. It just was for like a second. I thought, oh no, we're not losing anything. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, for our people, who many of whom are still dealing with the legal stuff and legal abuse, that so consumes them that they'll often hire us because they say, it's so much, what I'm dealing with is so stressful that it's too much for my partner to deal with. And so I'm recognizing that I need somebody to talk to about this particular chaos. So it's not a burden, because it is a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah. Well, step parents, just side note to you guys, you have to back off from that and keep your own oxygen mask on first, and recognize when the fight is your partner's fight to fight, and not if it's burning you out to the point where you are compromised in your relationship, it's destroying your own mental well-being, you need to back off, because your partner needs your support. And you cannot save a drowning person if you go in the water with them. You have to keep yourself on solid land and throw that lifeline out to them. And it's so hard, because it's impacting your family too, right? Like, this is my family too. But the thing is, you can't help from in the trenches. You can help from the sidelines, but if you're down there with them, then you're losing your perspective and that 30,000-foot view. But your partner needs that, and you have to be able to hang on to that to be able to help your partner.
Oh, that is so important. And I'm getting flashbacks again to the beginning of our relationship, where I don't know. Have you ever heard of the word clairsentient?
Yeah, I have heard that word.
Yeah, I learned it a few years ago, but it's basically someone who really picks up on other people's feelings. It's like a hyper empath. And it's kind of a problem for me sometimes, where like when someone else is really stressed out, I take in that energy as if it's my own stress. Yeah. So like if it's with my kids or with my partner, people that I really love, I can't sleep at night. I'm like problem solving, spinning in the middle of the night. And so when Chris and I were also together, when he was in the throes of his struggles, it got where I was like, we can't talk about this after 8 p.m. because I cannot sleep. It becomes my problem. And then it's almost like he has to take care of me being so concerned about his situation. Right. So we needed that boundary. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because it did affect the relationship, where I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I love you, but can't talk about it.
That's one of the things I give advice on the most, is set those office hours. We're not talking about this after 8 p.m. or we're not going to talk about this in our bedroom, or we're not going to talk about this more than twice a week or whatever. Take yourself off, like step parents. If you're a step parent, take yourself off that text chain. If you don't need to be on that group text, you just take yourself out of there. If you don't need to be CC'd on emails, you just take yourself out of there. And that's what I finally did with Dan. It was like, well, it seemed like a good idea to be CC'd on all of these emails, you know, because I'm the keeper of the family calendar. But when every email chain devolves into like insulting you and then like indirectly insulting me. So like the exes emailing him and then saying things like, well, if Maarit had just blah, 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 but like she's emailing him, but she's seeing me. It's like so passive aggressive.
Oh,
like, you know what? Let's do this. I'm taking myself off the chain. My husband will tell me if I need to add something to the calendar. And if he forgets to tell me, that's on him. And it won't be on me. And I am not going to work harder to make us a family and make all of this work than he's going to work at it. Like, dude, I'm really sorry you're stuck in the middle. But yes, you are in the middle and you need to decide what that looks like. I can't decide that for you.
yeah, absolutely. And so many of us are problem solvers and fixers.
Right.
And we want to take care of it. And it is so important to like back off a bit and say, it's not my problem. Like, I love you and I care, but I can't take care of it. It's just like with my kids, it's who are, you know, young adults now. And I listen, and then it's like, I have ideas, but I have to let them figure it out.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It's painful to watch someone have to problem solve when you know, like, I think I know better, but you have to keep yourself out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing that we talked about was baggage and how important it is to understand a new partner's baggage. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit with just recognizing that Dan's marriage had been, you know, so unhealthy. And if I would have known that going in, I think I would have approached everything differently. Like, if I would have known now, what, you know, if I would have known
like
that.
What kinds of things do you think you would have done differently?
I don't think I would have gone in quite so like fists swinging and, you know, go to the mattresses and we're gonna fix this. And I would have spent a lot less time trying to get Dan to act a certain way or respond to his ex in a certain way. I definitely would have gotten couples counseling like from immediately.
Interesting.
So early on. I would have researched a lot more about blending families. Again, when you're dating, you're like, well, I'm not really a step parent because we're just dating, we're not living together, or we're not married. Man, those blended family dynamics, the step family dynamics apply to you the second you start being romantically involved with someone with kids, even if you've never met the kids. It doesn't matter because the dynamics still impact you and you need to educate yourself. So I just would have been more educated, and I would have gotten more support for myself outside of all of that, and done, well, like my little spiel that I just gave about keep your oxygen mask on first. Yeah, I did not do that. Like, just to be super clear, I did not do that. So do as I say and not as I did, because that was so hard. And then I really wasn't able to be emotionally present for my husband and for my own kid and for my stepkid, and definitely not for myself in the way that I could have been if I would have known the order to prioritize. You know, it's really hard because when you're dealing with this high conflict person, you blame everything on them, you know, like it's their fault that we're not blending, or I can't get along with my step kid, or you and I are always arguing about your ex. It's their fault. And blaming this other person, like, yeah, that's a contributing factor, I'm not going to lie. And it does make it harder, but there's a lot more work that goes into becoming a step family besides just dealing with the ex. Like, there's a lot of work you need to do on your own expectations, on what it means to blend a family, on forming those new relationships. Like, it's work. And when you're blaming the ex the whole time, you're not doing that work because you think they're the problem, but they're not they're a factor, but they're not the only factor. So I would definitely approach it from a more sort of holistic perspective, of just looking at the big picture. But I couldn't see the big picture when I was in it in my early days. I couldn't see that big picture in any way.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh my God, like, I think that's so important because Chris and I were dating, we both had kids and we knew we had kids and we knew that the kids were going to meet and that we'd be together for a long time and etc. But I didn't even consider myself as a blended family because we're not married and we don't live together. So I felt like, and I still kind of feel like I don't have as much, I'm not so much in their life because I don't live with their father. But I am really present. I mean, we're together a lot. We've done family vacations together. They've had me in their life for more than 7 years. But I feel bad because I didn't do any of that research and things seem to be okay, and they've been okay. But I'm thinking I probably should still do some research.
But like,
why not?
I mean, we just don't know that in the early days. And I wish I had started research sooner. I probably started looking into that stuff maybe 2 years in. And we weren't married till we were about together maybe 4 years or so. So yeah, so just know, folks who are dating people with kids, step family dynamics do apply to you. So do research about that. And there's so much help out there now for, there's just so much more help out there now than there was when I was, getting started. And a lot of it is so helpful, even knowing how to navigate with the ex who is a nightmare. If you know that from the beginning, it is easier. I mean, it doesn't make them less of a nightmare, but then at least you have a better game plan for dealing with them.
Yeah, I think if so much depends on someone's perspective.
Totally.
If you know what to expect and you know what's coming, then you could deal with it a little bit better or a lot better, hopefully. Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about the kid drama.
Oh my God.
And some of the common things.
Let's go back to the copy area because I actually wrote down notes and I might need them. So hang on. I'm enjoying this you guys get a little tour through my house a little bit.
Yeah. So I know that you probably saw the post that I put this morning because I was thinking, I should really ask someone this question. Perfect for today. What do we do when the kids are spies? Because this happens constantly, even when we're not living together, we have these spies going back and forth. Yeah. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Okay, so let me check my notes. Okay, so the first thing I want to say, I kind of group them together, the spying and the lying, all one problem, right? So the first thing I want to say is spying and lying are normal kid behaviors. Just everybody keep in mind, this isn't happening just because the ex is awful or just because of the divorce. Like even in traditional families, kids spy on their parents, they're snoopers, they lie, it happens all of the time. The difference is that when you've got a kid who naturally does this stuff, when you have the high conflict ex, just like anything, they turn that into a weapon that they can use against you. And they make that kid, their agent. So the best way to counteract that is to not buy into the drama. So one of the things you can do is if you're calling your kid out on lying, and it really depends, of course, on what they're lying about. But like for us, we had problems with general lying about things like, did you wash your hair? But then it like escalated into things like saying she didn't have homework, but she did have homework. And then she'd go back to her mom's and say, well, I told them, but they wouldn't help me with it. And then that spiraled into depositions and saying, well, they don't support my daughter's education. They're not supporting, and it just like stupid. Well, the classic playbook of the high conflict person. How can I twist this and manipulate it into a weapon and use it against you?
Oh, I'm sure if we gave people the chance, we could fill the next few hours with stories like that.
It's so classic, and at the time, I didn't know that, but it's just like, it honestly is textbook. Like, I cannot believe how many people have almost identical stories to ours. And I used to think, I was the only person going through this. And now I'm like, everybody, I can't believe how many people have this exact problem, like the exact problem with the homework or whatever. So, so one of the ways to counteract this is to, about little stuff of lying, is to not buy into the lies. Don't interact with your kid in a way that doesn't set them up to double down on that lie. So instead of saying, did you wash your hair, when you know that they didn't, you can say, will you please go wash your hair? And don't ask them if they did it when you know that they did not do it. You know?
So no rhetorical questions.
No rhetorical questions. Yeah. If you know they're lying, just tell them to go do it. For the more serious stuff, it's harder because how do you want to defend yourself, especially if that's making its way into your court battle. The lying, spying is going into court and being used against you. But the thing is, this sucks. You cannot stop your kid from spying and lying. You can't stop them from doing it. But what you can do is not buy into it and not make drama out of it. And if you stop doing that, then you're defusing that bomb and you're removing the ex's ability to weaponize it against you. You know, so instead of getting drawn into this big fight with your ex about, I absolutely did ask if she had homework, and or even, you know, more directly, like, yeah, we sat down to do homework and then she wouldn't do it or whatever, then just say, well, you know, we had homework time and we talked to her and she said, you know, she didn't have any, and that's too bad. I would have been happy to help her. And then just move on. Don't get sucked into the, you know, well, are you saying my daughter is a liar? I believe my daughter. You know, just don't get sucked into that. It's bullshit, because don't engage. Just the number one rule, do not engage. And like, does it make you look bad in court? I mean, it might, but if you have your documentation to back up, like, nope, here's my letter I have from the teachers. Every Friday I go in, I have them sign off, like, is there homework or whatever you're doing to protect yourself. When you have your counter story, you have to just stick to that. The courts know that there are people who will use any little thing to make you look bad. The courts do know that, even if they don't always act on it. And like, you can't get sucked into it. The best thing you can do is act normal, because otherwise then you get paranoid and like you're walking on eggshells all of the time. And then your kid feels even more in a loyalty bind because you're upset with them, and they're going to stick to their story. Like, we all remember being kids and being called out on lying. And like, when someone calls you out, you don't fess up, you double down. No, I was not eating in my room. I have no idea where those dirty dishes came from. I don't know. My brother must have put them there. I mean, like, and these kids are no different. They're going to double down. So just don't give them the opportunity to do that. Just be like, okay, and move on. But if it's not causing drama, then the high conflict person moves on to find a different target. And then if the kid feels less in a loyalty bind because you're not coming at them, then they actually might start acting normal if you are acting normal. If they feel that loyalty bind to their toxic parent is threatened, they're going to lash out to protect that. So if they don't feel like that it's threatened, then they're going to calm down. So you calm down first and then they calm down. Not always, but like, this is a thing that helps.
Yeah, I like that term, and I know what it is, but could you briefly just explain what a loyalty bond is? A loyalty bind, sorry.
Yeah, it's basically when a kid is, again, super, super normal, feels like they need to reject their other parent or a step parent because they are so attached to their primary parent, whatever the parent is that they're overly bonded to. That can be for many reasons. It can just be because of loyalty and like, you know, like, why did you leave my mother? And, you know, I'm sticking with mom and we're the family now and you left. Like, I mean, that could be like kind of a protective thing. But it can definitely be fostered and nurtured and, once again, twisted and used against you by a parent who's toxic or high conflict. One of the problems we ran into was my stepdaughter's mom was really volatile, and I don't know. My stepdaughter's mom and her have a very weird codependent, like toxic relationship, but it's
Common.
yeah, but it's not a peaceful codependent relationship. It's also very high conflict. And so my stepdaughter would do anything to have her mom not be mad at her, including throw us under the bus. Perfectly
Yeah.
to throw us under the bus to not be in trouble with her mom. And so there's another reason that lying happens is like, well, I don't want to get trouble from the scary parent. You know,
Right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely get these people are always in trouble anyway. I'll just say that they did it, you know. So loyalty bind can be, you know, to a greater or lesser degree, but then in extreme cases you're running into like alienation where they refuse to connect with the parent, or the step parent just refuse and they reject you, and you know, my other parent is the only one who loves me.
Yeah. As you're talking, I want to bring something up that I've noticed in our situation that I have a feeling is really common. Do you find that when you're dealing with a your partner's high conflict ex, that one of the things they do with the kids is they make the kids feel guilty if the kids actually like you as the
So
step parent or the other partner. So the kids are like, I'm not allowed to like the new person because that'll really upset my mom, for example.
yeah, that's something I talk about a lot because I know that was a problem for me and my stepdaughter. And like part of that too is that in a little kid brain, and it depends on the age of the kids, but especially in younger kids, if they like you as a parent figure. And then if you're a parent yourself, like I have a daughter the same age as my stepdaughter. And so here's my stepdaughter watching me parent my kid without screaming, without
Mhm.
manipulation, without guilt trips, without, you know, the abuse factor, like without this terrible dynamic. And so I'm a living, walking, breathing example that, oh, moms don't have to be like this. Well,
Exactly.
what 7-year-old can take that knowledge in? It's much easier to push me away and
Mhm.
not look at me directly and say, well, I can't accept that that is reality, you know.
Totally.
They just can't acknowledge that. I mean, that's, it's so icky, and it's so heartbreaking, and my heart just breaks for these kids. I mean, it's hard as a step parent to live through that rejection. um but like these kids who are going through it is just so awful that that their parent is so awful that they can't look directly at it for their survival. It's a survival tactic for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so another thing, as you were talking, I thought let's talk about so we talked about the spying and lying, but one thing that happens a lot, we know on the other side, is grilling. So it's not that the kids just lie about not washing their
Right.
hair, but they'll go to the other parent and they'll say, what'd you do? And they find out all this information about what we
Yeah.
are doing in our lives. And I feel like it's such an
Yeah.
invasion of
And then
privacy.
and then they won't say a word at your house about what happens at the other house, right? Like, who knows
Right. And we don't care. We don't
yeah.
care.
Oh my god. Yeah, yeah. It's hard.
So
Like,
how to deal with that?
what can you do? I mean, you really can't do anything, and it sucks to say that, but what you can do is not get in your head about it, you know. So like you can't ever stop the ex from doing that. You're not going to be able to say to them, because they're not reasonable people, hey, it's not fair that you're putting our kid in this position, or I really want to do. They're not going to stop doing it. And then the tactic we try a lot of the time is, well, I'm going to change how I'm acting then, so my kid or my stepkid doesn't have ammo to bring back to the other parent. But the thing is, it really doesn't matter what you're doing, because that a toxic person is going to make it into ammo, even if it isn't. They're going to turn anything into a weapon they can use against you, because again, they want the drama and the chaos, and that's how they're controlling you. So they're not concerned about whether the kid is actually happy at your house. except that if they can make it seem like it's not, so then they have a reason to freak out at you and, you know, be a martyr. So if you don't get in your head about it, though, you stop trying to, I don't know, act a certain way, like act blameless, like try to be that person who the kid's not going to take anything back this week. We served their favorite meal every week. We didn't argue once. Like everything went perfect. Doesn't matter. You know, a kid in that bind is going to lie to their high conflict parent to make issues if they don't exist, because they're in survival mode and that's what they have to do to appease the high conflict parent. And so just like anything else, when you're dealing with someone who's high conflict, the answer is not going along with them or trying to appease them, because they're not going to calm down. The best answer is for you to be yourself and just kind of and blow off their concerns when they come at you and be like, oh, that's not how I remember it happening, but I'm sorry you feel that way. It's never my intention to upset you or upset you, or you know, whatever BIF response you can come back with. Do you guys, I'm sure you guys know about the BIF response, the brief, informative, firm, and whatever BIF response you come back with. And like, you have to be unbothered. You have to live your normal life and be unbothered, because no matter how normal you are, they can use that as a weapon against you. The kids can unknowingly, and your ex can too.
Yeah, so important. So one thing that actually my partner said earlier in here, which I think we should talk about, is how you touched on it too, that when you said about the kids seeing how the new parent, or you as the stepmother, is not explosive and parents your kid without all the drama, that you are modeling a healthy relationship. So these kids have seen, depending on how old they are and how much they remember, they've seen the opposite. And now they're learning, like, there's another way to be. Like, have you seen the effects on your kids? I don't know how old they were when you all split and then got together, but
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my sorry, tell you about the impact on the kids.
Yeah, like, so either with your own family or other families, you know, like, we feel like it's very, very important, and we're proud of that. We're modeling a healthy relationship for our kids who have come out of these totally different dynamics. And I've seen in my own kids who are college students that they're looking, they're almost like modeling, like they're looking for different things. Unfortunately, they become so emotionally intelligent and aware because of what they've been through.
Right.
So they tend to look for things in almost like a long-term partner, you know, someone that they really get along with, et cetera, like a good friend, even when they're still so young, because they've seen a better dynamic. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed changes in your kids and their relationships from being modeled with your own relationship?
I mean, getting there. They're in their, you know, they're about the same age as your kids now, I think. So we got together. My daughter was 7. My stepdaughter was just about 7, and they were little when we got together. And then my daughter, her dad left before she was 2. But she really doesn't have any memory of us being together or what that dynamic was like at all. Good. Whereas for my stepdaughter, she did have some memories of the relationship between her parents. They'd only been divorced, I don't know, a couple years, I think, before Dan and I got together. The biggest impact for my stepdaughter, we'll do stepdaughter first, because they're total opposite people, and once again, here too, they're total opposites. So my stepdaughter has a lot of trouble in her romantic relationships because of her relationship with her mom. You know, when you're raised from birth to believe that love equals control, love equals pleasing a toxic person, and if you really, really love someone, then you either control them or are controlled by them. I mean, like, of course that's going to mess up your relationships. So she's really struggled. She's, however, done a shitload of work on herself. She's gone to therapy. She and her mom have worked through a bunch of stuff. Her mom has actually done a lot of work on her own. This is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be saying these things, I'd be like, never. But they are doing the work. And so as a result, my stepdaughter really is starting to understand why her relationships aren't healthy, and work through that, and work through what a healthy relationship looks like. It's really hard when that's your formative relationships are dysfunctional. And that dysfunction feels normal and you think it's love, you know. And that's, I mean, that's going to be true for any child of trauma or abuse. And then my daughter, you know, she didn't go completely unimpacted by all of the drama between houses. It might not have been her parent that I was fighting with, but I was really emotionally unavailable for her because I was so wrapped up in Dan's drama with his ex and trying to help my stepdaughter or figure out how to help her or whatever. She struggles on her end with, her dad is very absent. He's not conflict, but he just wasn't that involved. And so she has that absent dad wound. And
yeah, we have that too.
And so that has been really hard to watch. But she sort of caught on sooner than my stepdaughter. So she had one like really shitty relationship and then was like, I'm going to be celibate for a while because I know that's not right. And so she's kind of trying to work on her stuff too. And she does really appreciate Dan. Like, I'm really thankful she met Dan young. And like Dan and I have a really healthy relationship. And so so that is helpful. But I think, you know, no matter how healthy your relationship is, like, you're always going to make your own stupid, you know, relationships when you're 20. Like, that's what your 20s are for.
Oh yeah. I know. So that's why I worry. Like with my daughter, I feel like she, you know, one of the things that my trauma therapist said years ago when my daughter was younger, because she was 11 when we split, is that she's gonna be more cautious with her relationships because of what's happened with her father. And that's been true. She's definitely more cautious. My son is the opposite. He'll try he's more like me, like, go ahead, just do whatever.
Too. She's like, I don't think she's been single since she started dating as a teenager. I don't think she's been single for longer than like a month and a half. I mean, it's just, and every breakup, she's like, I just really need to be single and spend time with myself. I'm like, yes, you do. And then no, and then that happens every time. Yeah,
I can relate to that from my own parents when I was a teenager. Totally.
My daughter is more like your daughter, where I think she's a little more thoughtful about who she's getting involved with, because she just doesn't have the high tolerance for heartbreak that my daughter has. I don't know. I'm not a shrink. I just sometimes, you know, when you're a parent, you do tend to be like an armchair expert shrink to try to get on with the kids. But mostly we just try to stay back and support them. And if we think that the relationships they're in are unhealthy, we do try to talk to them about it. But, you know, they don't listen because they know everything because they're in their 20s. I knew everything too, so I can relate to that.
Right. I know there's a bumper sticker that says, like, you know everything and then you just forget.
Totally.
You used to know everything. Yeah. All right. So Maarit, tell us about, you know, I don't want to take you all day and I got to eat lunch with my own dad.
Right.
But tell us about, well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for talking to me, and because these are such important topics. And I think we have at least 2 more of these ahead of us to talk about other topics, because I took so many notes when we first met and I didn't even get to most of them. So, so thanks for that. But also, do you want to talk about, you know, when we talked before, you were thinking about putting something together, and I don't know if you're offering anything yet, or I know you have that high conflict divorce parenting plan thing. Tell us about what people can get from you and where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me here on Instagram. I live on Instagram. And then also at my website, blendedfamilyfrappe.com. And if you're on my mailing, I send out a newsletter every week, and just with blogs about all of this stuff, all of this wonderful, delightful stuff. But specifically about navigating step-family life in high conflict and the many, many, many factors of that. I do have for your audience specifically, I think, and this is how we met, was one of your people bought my checklist. So,
right. And then we bought it too, because we were like, ooh, that sounds fascinating.
the checklist is awesome. Dan and I came up with this checklist of what do we wish that our parenting agreements had, or what did our parenting agreements have that we loved, and everyone should have this in it because it was a lifesaver. And it kind of came out because my sister was getting divorced and her husband is a textbook narcissist. I mean, like NPD, actual narcissistic personality disorder. Like, and she's like, tell me what you know, you guys. And so Dan and I just put our heads together and made this really comprehensive list that she used during her own divorce. And we just this morning, she was texting me and saying, again, cannot thank you enough for that checklist. I cannot believe it has saved me tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
She's like, and I can't estimate how much in therapy bills, because just putting the right parenting plan in place tremendously can reduce the opportunity for conflict. Now, it doesn't make a difficult person less difficult, like, just to be super clear. But if you can limit their nonsense with things like, yeah, you can call the house, but that call can only be 15 minutes. Or, yeah, we can communicate, but it all has to be in writing, and it all has to be through, like, whatever, Family Wizard or Talking Parents or something. If you can put those in place, then you have legally enforceable boundaries that also kind of help with, like, the guilt aspect of it, of you feeling guilty, like, gosh, well, I don't want to be the person who says you have to get off the phone with your kids. Guess what? You're not the person. Now the judge is the person who's saying it. And you can say the 15 minutes are up, kids, and you got to get off the phone now. And it just really empowers you to limit your interactions with that high conflict person, because as we all know, any opportunity for interacting with them is an opportunity for conflict. So if you have more specificity in your parenting plan, it really, really helps reduce that. So I do have that. That is, it's not on my homepage, but if you go to the Start Here, I do have it right in there under the resources for high conflict and alienation. So,
great.
But I mean, in addition to that, we have, workshops, and we did start offering one-on-one stuff. We'll see how that goes. And we have our podcast, which is a paid subscription. So there's that too. And just, I don't know, we just try to crank out as much stuff as we think will be helpful to as many people as we can help, because this is a nightmare. But if you have the right tools, it can become livable. Like, you can have a normal, regular life, to some extent, but like you can get used to the conflict and find ways to corral it so that you can still live your life.
We say the same thing basically with the legal abuse stuff. Like, you compartmentalize it and you can still have, like, this wonderful life.
Yeah.
But you have to learn how to turn the volume down on that and put it off to the side.
Exactly.
Because it's not going to go away.
No, it's never going to go away. They're never going to calm down and suddenly become reasonable. So you have to learn how to have boundaries. And then if you have that legal piece of the puzzle in place, that is a more enforceable boundary in some ways. And like that, because it's in writing. I think a lot of people feel better about sticking to their guns when it's something that is in writing and they say, well, this paper protects me. You kind of feel braver. It's like Dumbo and his little feather, right? Like, you're like, this is helping me fly. This helps.
I love that. That's a great analogy. All right. Well, thank you again so much. And let's definitely do this again.
Okay. We'll talk
again.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.